Hi, I'm Philip from Nightfox Audio, and today we're going to be doing a product walkthrough of our brand new effects plugin, MacroMacro. I'm using Logic today, and on my channel, on my MIDI effects slot, I have a plugin called Rendition. This is our plugin for MIDI, and any of my one-finger notes that I'm playing become a full chord. So I'm going to be using that so that I can use my left hand to play the chords. The instrument plugin, the VST that we are using is called Layered. That one just recently came out from us as well. And Layered is a stack of 12 different instruments in one with an arpeggiator and an effects. So the reason MacroMacro exists is because we put all of these effects into our instrument Layered. And as you can see on this tab, all of these 8 different effects are controlled by this one macro knob in the middle. But it's kind of tied into our virtual instrument here. And so I found myself, as I was using this plugin, I really wanted to just pull out the effects and use them on a vocal chain, to use them on a drum bus or a keys track or something like that. So that's exactly what we did. We pulled the effects out of Layered, and now you have them. They can be used on any other audio or your own instruments in your sessions. So here's MacroMacro. Let's talk about the header. We'll go through each of the instruments. We'll talk about the big knob. We'll talk about presets. And hopefully this will solve any of your questions or intrigue about the plugin. On the top here you have a master section. And there you have a master EQ and compression. Both of those can be powered off with the little button here. And then a bypass. The bypass actually bypasses the compression, the EQ, and all of the effects that are running through the plugin. Then you've got level and a pan. This will be a global pan for your entire track. Double-clicking that pan puts it back to 0. Then you have mute and settings. In settings, you've got settings for your MIDI controller and MIDI CC mapping. Any of the parameters in the plugin that you right-click and map to your MIDI CC knobs or faders will show up here in this MIDI CC mapping section. There's also color mode up here on the right. I'm going to switch to dark mode because it's a little bit easier on the eyes for me. And then a lot of these parameters here are run by your DAW, so you won't have control over them. You'd have to change those in the settings of your DAW. And then you can turn tooltips on and off here. And again, clearing all your MIDI CC with this button, and that will get rid of any of the information that you've mapped here. So that's settings. Back to the main tab here, you've got basically 8 different slots for effects. You've got drive and grit, filter LFO, chorus and phaser. You can pick one or the other. Stereo delay or tape delay, gain LFO, pitch LFO, and then reverbs, a shimmer verb and a plate reverb. Powering those on is just as easy as hitting that big power button. And so at this point, I have all 8 of my effects on. If I click the bypass, they kind of get muted, so it gives you the impression that they're off. One other thing on the functions here, the spectrum on or off, that basically can save you a little bit of CPU if you turn that spectrum off. Because it's giving real-time information about the frequency response of the plugin. All right, before we get into any of these specific effects themselves, what I'm going to do is talk to you about how the big knob in the middle, the macro knob, has control over any of the parameters in the plugin. And the way you do that is by, first of all, powering on any of your effects and then clicking one of these little buttons here. And so now basically what we're saying is the drive knob here, the parameter itself, is giving permission to the big macro knob to control it. And so now I'm changing this parameter for the knob, and you can hear that the drive is going up and down. But the other really cool thing about this is that this little yellow pie chart in the middle, if I were to make that 100%, now the macro knob has 100% control over that drive knob. So you can see how powerful that becomes when you select more than one parameter and select different ratios of control for each parameter. And so now you can see that all of those are changing differently according to the values that I've set with that colorful little sphere or triangle or pie chart in the middle. So just to be clear about that, you can A, assign control of each parameter with these buttons, and then B, assign how much control of that parameter does the macro knob have. So again, I'm doing 100% here, and the smaller bits here, the smaller slices just have a tiny bit of control. What happens then when I assign different ratios in reverb and delay and grit and frequency, so all of those are being controlled simultaneously by the big knob, and so you get these really interesting intersections of effects because you're controlling 5 or 6 or 10 or 20 parameters all at the same time with one controller. And you can map that sucker, right click, learn MIDI CC, map it to your mod wheel. That's generally what I do, and I'm using that mod wheel to control a bunch of things at the same time. All right, let's go through the effects themselves. So drive has drive amount, a bit crush. So you can see how it steps up to 14 bits, and then you've got a mix. So if you click a little arrow, you have these other parameters that come out. You have a low pass and a high pass, and those apply only to the effect, not to the original signal. I'm going to click grit here, and now this is kind of a different overdrive. And again, you have 3 parameters: drive, character, and mix. The character one is basically it edits the high frequencies. It gives character the high frequencies of the drive. So let's move over to delays. You have tape delay, and again, you can see how I'm controlling. By the way, the graphics in the middle, you'll notice that as I add these buttons, more colors show up in the big one. That's kind of a visual cue that now you're not only editing the parameters for chorus with the pink, but you're also editing with the blue and the light blue. And the more you add, the more colors you get added to that. And so the other thing about those images in the middle, they're also visually connected to the parameter itself. So chorus kind of looks like chorus, like a dividing sound signal. And then drive looks like an angry, kind of aggressive, from clean to aggressive. So back to delay. So let's jump back into effects and talk about tape delay. Tape delay has roll off, which is cutting the high frequency of just the effect, and then you have feedback and mix. Clicking the little arrow brings out the tempo, which the tempo is not synced to the DAW, it's just in milliseconds, so you can get stuff that's in between the beats. Then you have tape wow and speed, and you can hear how it kind of warps the signal and gives a little bit of overdrive distortion / pitch bend to just the effect. So tape delay gives you that little bit of tape vibe, and if you roll quite a bit off, it gets darker and darker as the signal goes on. Stereo delay has, again, roll off, feedback, and mix, and then in the pop out, you've got rate left and right. These two are synced to the DAW, so you could put dotted eights on one side and quarters or whatever on the other side, and you get that nice bounce back and forth. Gain LFO is pretty awesome. It acts kind of as a tremolo. And there's a lot of really cool things that you can do to all 3 of the LFOs in MacroMacro. There's a drop down here, and this top one is custom, so you can kind of draw your own LFO. I'm going to turn the depth up so you can hear it better. Maybe I'll go a little bit slower so we can hear. And you can turn up the smooth so it doesn't, it's not so jarring at each of these transitions. So you can create really cool custom LFOs with this. Really choppy stuff if you want. And then if you go down here, you've also got a sine and a triangle and a saw and a square. And I like to just put smooth somewhere in like that right around a millisecond and a half. And then the other really cool thing about LFOs is that you can do them in steps. And I love this because it gets a really cool choppy thing. It almost treats the LFO like a step sequencer, and it takes it one step to the next. And I'm going to turn that speed up. Really cool. And you can roll the dice, get kind of some random, or reset to 100% and just drag your mouse across and draw some new ones. This one is really useful in pitch LFO, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Very cool. So that's gain LFO. You have the depth control and the speed control, and this one is locked to it's synced to your DAW, and you have all the way from a full bar to triplet 64ths. Let's talk about filter. So filter has a frequency and a resonance, and if you pop open the box, you get another table. Filter has a bunch of different filter types here. The top two, low pass and high pass, are the ones that I use most frequently. And that resonance, you can see what that does right there as you go. And again, because I have assigned control over the filter to the big knob, you can see that the big knob is also controlling that. Filter and filter LFO are connected. So if you turn on the filter LFO, it will automatically edit what's happening here in the filter box. So right now we have it under step, like we were just seeing in the gain LFO. But I'm just going to go to sine, and you can kind of see what it does, just like that. And if I turn the depth up, it's doing that same filter frequency all the way up and down. You can also do custom here. Put a little smooth on it. So it's really cool. All the same functionality of the LFO and the other one, but if I power down filter, that also powers down the filter LFO. And then I power filter on, I have to manually power on filter LFO because it doesn't assume that you want both. So that's filter and filter LFO. Let's move on to chorus. So under this one, you have chorus and phaser. And you have a rate, a depth, and a mix. And then you have spread and effects gain. And the effects gain, if you go too hot, does bring a little distortion. But this is a really cool way to get some width, and especially to adjust the width of whatever instrument you're putting effects on with the macro knob. All right, let's talk about phaser. So phaser has depth, speed, mix, frequency 1 and frequency 2. That's basically where does it start and where does it stop and where does it go back and forth, how fast and how deep. So pretty nice phaser, although it's probably the one that I use the least on the whole plugin. Let's bounce over to pitch LFO. This is one of my favorites. So it takes and just warbles whatever you put through it. And right now I've got the steps set to here. I'm going to turn the steps way up, and so sometimes I'll do this to like an odd number of steps so it doesn't repeat on a normal bar. And then I'll kind of flatten it out and then just do a couple like random dips. And this is a cool way to get like a warbly tape effect. And that's really dramatic. So I'm going to turn that depth down a little bit. And that's a very tapey thing. Like that tape's been stretched and worn out. And you can turn the depth down even farther or adjust those or roll the dice. And then, of course, you have your classic sine wave. And all the other same triangle, saw, square that you have with the other LFOs. So I really love using that LFO to give kind of warble and vibe. And I think you'll find some really cool uses for it as well. All right, last one is reverb. And when I click on turn on the reverb, I either get shimmer or plate reverb, and that shimmer is just beautiful. I'll turn that mix down a little bit and the size up. Maybe even go a little bit more on the mod depth. And so you have mod depth, high frequency damp, so that's kind of another roll off, and diffusion. So 6 controls for shimmer. We've only given you 3 of them, which can be controlled by the big knob. So it's kind of cool if I give just a sliver of control to the big knob here. You get that modulation as it happens. So if you combine those two, if you combine it with drive, you get this really nice interplay of those two effects simultaneously, which I love how that warble you can combine with the pitch LFO and the size of the reverb. All of those things happening simultaneously gives you some unexpected responses, and I love that because I'm oftentimes surprised by the sounds that I'm getting out of this plugin because of the intersection of those different effects. So that's shimmer. And let's take a look at plate reverb. So plate reverb just has the 3 parameters: damping, and decay, and mix. All right, so this is the bottom row here has an input meter and an output meter, and then this middle thing, you click anywhere there, and it's going to pull up all the presets. Here you can favorite a preset. So if I loved acoustic punch, I can put a little star by it, and if I liked dirty acoustic, I click on that. If I really like that, I'll star it. So then the next time I come to presets and I click on the star, it's going to show all of the favorited presets there. We've given you acoustic, bass, drums, electric guitar, keys, LFOs, synths, and vocals. You can also add your own categories here using the plus button, rename any of those categories or get rid of them. And the same is true of these actual presets on the right. You can add, you can rename, and you can delete with the trash can here. The save button here saves it, so if you've made adjustments to acoustic punch and you want to resave it, it's going to ask you if you want to replace. And then the drop down here gives you some options to show where the presets are, import some other presets from other places. And then the drop down menu here gives you the preset folder location and some other options. You can search for the name of a preset if you know what you called it or something like what you called it, and it'll pull it up. And I'll just go through and show you some of the presets that I like. A lot of LFO stuff. So I'll just walk through a couple more of the presets. A lot of these are drums, chorus sauce. And keep in mind as you're using it, that we've already set the parameters for the big knob, so it hopefully immediately giving you some ideas as you pull that up. So you can see how powerful that middle knob is on MacroMacro. That's the plugin. Multi-effects, all 8 in one with a big controller in the middle. And keep in mind, go through a bunch of our presets and see how we've already mapped those parameters to the big knob and see how they interact. Make something amazing, tag us, let us know what you think.